Hey, what's going on, everybody? We have a very special episode on 4GQ TV today. Real quick, panel members, we have Paris with us, we have Dion next to me, and we have a very special guest, and I'm probably going to say this wrong, so he might have to correct me 1,000 times, but Andreas.
Andres Useche.
There we go. Okay, the way he
Very
said
good.
it is how it should be said.
Got to flip that
So,
tongue, flip that tongue a little bit.
yeah, I have a hard time. So one of the first things that I want to ask you is, what is it that you do, and what led you to what you do, the passion for it?
So I would consider myself a creative person, an activist, and I got started very young. I guess my parents are a psychologist and a social worker, and my dad's very much an activist. So I grew up sort of in marches and protesting and stuff like that. It's sort of in the family. And then my dad was also an avid reader, so he was reading to me very early on. I started to write very early, even before I could write with my hand. He would type down stories, some of which I still have, like pirate stories, based on the books I was reading at the time or I was hearing at the time. And published my first political cartoon at 11 in a local little newspaper, and just kept doing that. Did comics in high school, won a grant with that, and sort of with that led me to college, where I had been playing guitar. So when I went into college for visual design, I was already interested in photography, and I was drawing comics. And with the music, I was thinking, and I got into theater, and I was thinking, oh, there's something that combines all of this, and that's filmmaking. So in school, though, they were asking me for very tiny projects, and I was just like crazy, going, oh, I want to do this and that, and I wrote really big things, very long things, and I had to later do them on my own, sort of finish them because we didn't have equipment or anything. But that eventually led producers and executives from studios here in the States to see them in festivals when I won an award or two. And so there was a service back then. This was in the early days of the internet, I guess. But there was a service called Film Tracker or something like that, and they just found you where you were. And I got a call in Colombia saying, we want to bring you to the States, to LA for some meetings and stuff. And that's how I eventually got to the States to start working on some of those projects. And then, yeah, and being an immigrant myself, one of the things that impacted me was that there was a wonderful woman who was undocumented who helped us a lot. So she had a family, she was raising her family, making sure they went to college, working in all this, very hard, difficult jobs that nobody wants to do. And at the same time, helping people like us, and that's when I was a kid, the first time I came to the US. And so that led me to start thinking about trying to help or doing what I could to speak up for people like her. And I could go on forever, but that's one of the avenues for my activism.
Awesome. So, understand you've toured the country, the United States, probably toured across the world a little bit. Got a chance to see other cultures and stuff. So, as you're touring the States, were you a lot of activism, a lot of songwriting and playing music? Like you said that in college, that's where you sort of picked up the guitar and started learning how to sing. So, like, what gave you that passion to continue that and bring that home as you're continuing to sing and do things across the world right now?
It doesn't feel like a choice, it's like something you have to do, especially because it's so hard, and starting out, it's so hard to try to do anything. And now, it's even harder to do something in the arts. I mean, it's hard all around for everybody, and they're much harder jobs, but people see the end product. It's like everybody gets it. Okay, you're serving society because you're making this that we're using. And in the case of artists, it's not always appreciated. So I feel like you really have to need to do it more than want to do it. You need to do it. You need to express yourself. And I think it has to do with the sensibility, and all the artists that I've met share that at
Mhm.
whatever level. It's like you feel connected to humanity, and sometimes to animals and to the environment, and feeling that we're doing so much damage to it, or that we're not being conscious of what unites us, sort of,
Mhm.
at least it pushed me to try to find those connections. And I think that's what culture and art does, is try to find what unites us, what makes us human, what makes us part of the universe.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Awesome. Awesome.
So I think your story is amazing, and I just want to say I appreciate you, especially being who you are, and you're staying grounded. I think that is a great story you just told, and definitely thank you for taking us through that journey. And it seems like a lot of the people help kind of guide you, and you decided this is who you wanted to be. And do you think that is what helped you creatively, and uh, maybe kind of influenced or invoked some sort of emotion on a creative side as well, or how do you feel about that?
um, so as I understand the question, it's about my influences, or
Yes.
and I guess my influences have been very, I guess, political and activists, oftentimes more than artists.
Mhm.
Um, getting involved in that, in trying to help the Obama campaign, for example, that was somebody that I looked up to so much and that I learned so much from. But reading about Cesar Chavez and Gandhi and all of these people who've, worked so hard to make change, and then it was only later, after I did some of that on my own, that I connected with other artists that were also doing the same. And because of my other job in the industry or whatever else I was doing, I was able to sort of connect with a lot of people that were very close, very dear to me, and very close in how we think about what we can do or what we should try to do. And I guess the first time that I came after the I mean, I'm very grateful that I got some chances and I was able to start learning and writing as a screenwriter, a script doctor and all that, a lot. But in some cases, I also met with representation, which will go unnamed, but that was very disappointing to me. For example, I had a project with African American lead, and this is long before Black Panther, and they would tell me we can't do that. You're just not going to make as much money if you make it. So it's not racism, but you shouldn't do it. And I was like, F this, I was so done with that. And I was really disappointed. I almost left. I almost went back to Colombia, where I was thinking maybe I'll go to Europe. This is not the industry for me, but I was wrongly, fortunately, it was a wrong assumption that everybody was like that there was this
Mhm.
individual. And there's a few people like everywhere, there's a few people like that are really just about one thing in the world, and that's money and me. But after instead of leaving, what I did was I said, okay, I'm going to concentrate just on that, on equality, on activism, and I started writing songs about those things I believed in, immigrant rights, and the song supporting Obama, and all of these ideals, the environment. And after doing that is how I actually went, sort of connected with those people along the campaign trail or in other ways where people saw that work. And finally enough, that's what brought me back sort of into the industry, or at least being close to the industry. Because it turns out that most of the people feel the same way I do in this industry. And so when they talk about, they sort of discriminate or say, oh, the coastal elites, or they want to say, San Francisco or whatever. Well, to me, the ideal is equality, basically. And wherever you can see that there's less discrimination, that's heaven to me, and that's how we should be. So we should fight for that everywhere.
Right.
Yeah, I do think that inclusion and equality is important. Um, and I agree with you. I think your vision, and like you said, well, a lot of us feel the same way. And like I said, I really do appreciate your work, and feel like you are definitely making a mark, and a lot of people are paying attention to your work for sure. Um, and to me, it's inspiring, right? It has a lot of people you may not even know I always said, a kind word could change one person's whole life, right? A gesture, a moment, they just kind of watch you. You might not even know that. And I think uh, you and your position is definitely allowing or empowering other people who may not be able to have a voice or have power to kind of push the narrative, right?
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank
one
you very much.
thing that I definitely want to say is that when you speak about immigration reform and connecting with people and different cultures, but we're all people, right? At the end of the day, we're all people, and it means a lot to me that you do this kind of work. My father came from Italy when he was 14. My grandfather was deported 3 times because he didn't understand the process, and back then there was nobody that was really an activist for the large immigration of Italian Americans that came over from Italy. Instead, they were just constantly deported and they would try to come back and they just didn't understand the reason. And so, having someone like you with a voice out there that can make songs, go on rallies and marches, it's a big deal and it means a lot to a lot of people. So, I want to thank you for what you do because it
Thank
is
you
a
so much.
very important active
Absolutely.
activist. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I should say, there's a movement, and we're all part of it. And I'm a little reluctant to say it's one person or one, because we really are connected. And I work with a lot of organizations. UU Rise here in California is great for immigrant rights. The UNHCR are doing wonderful things with refugees, and I sort of try to collaborate with them. And there's so many organizations that anyone listening to this can always connect. In the universities in Texas, there was ULI, and there's dreamer groups that I connected with along the way after making one of my pieces, Marching into the Light. I ended up doing one specifically for the dreamers, Dream to Belong. And I realized, how many activists are working all over the country, at all levels, sometimes very far from the spotlight. And they're the hardest workers. And they're my heroes. So basically, my songs are about them. And I sing to them, about them. They're my heroes, and they're the people that inspire me. And that woman, her name was Perlita, because she passed away, who was so kind to us. My song, the Marching into the Light, is dedicated to her and to all women like her who are undocumented and who just wanted a better life and are making this a better country with their contribution. Those are the people that are there, on the ground, fighting the fight every day, and that we have to help however we can.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Um,
amazing.
One thing I want to add to that is there's something that my dad always told me growing up, and he said that America is built upon immigration, that everything in America has been done by immigrants that came here. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that, a lot of times in this day and age, we forget that.
Yeah.
And we forget, as a society, we see our society not being kind to immigrants today, and it kind of hurts because there's so many great things that immigrants have done for this
Mm-hmm.
country, created for this country,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very hard for the undocumented.
Yeah.
And I think that you do something extremely important. And one thing I wanted to ask you on that is,
Yeah.
after you do your songs and people see you or that what you do you
Mm-hmm.
get people to reaching out to you? Like, do they hear your songs and start reaching out to you and be like,
Yeah. Everything has grown very organically. So it's always one thing led to another, and that's how you end up where you are. Wherever you are, it's always been, uh, first. Well, it's difficult for me to keep the sequence in my head, but for example, from doing the Obama song and the Obama video, I ended up doing the Cove, the dolphin PSA slash all that work in nature, just because of the same people who saw me there, thought about me and connected with me. Oh, we believe this, and we eventually wanted to work. doing Marching into the Light led me directly to Dream to Belong, as I said, and that led me to some of the great people here in California who I ended up collaborating with, and eventually did things like the concerts, for families together, and all those things have one thing always has led to the other one in life, and I think it's the best we can do. Is we don't know where we're going or how things will work out, but I think if you put your best foot forward and you're not thinking so much about what you're getting back, because 99% of what I've done in my life is all as a volunteer, even to this day. At least you find yourself, and the reward that you get is much deeper. Is like true connection with real people who have the same priorities that you do. And that's just invaluable. That's the best thing in life, is all these people that you get to meet because of that.
Those are your most proudest moments, or do you have others you want to share?
Proudest moments when I got married.
Well, how about we phrase it? How about we phrase it where it's like, the proudest moments. Maybe just talk about some of the cool things that you've done to either, in your career, from activism, even your opportunity to meet the president and talk to with Capitol Hill about, immigration rights, so stuff like that. So, you can name a few of those things.
Okay.
Thanks,
so yeah. Because just to finish that thought, sometimes, and this made me think of Obama. So it's a good segue, because sometimes, you do a lot big rallies or big concerts, and some of them, are wonderful and great. And sometimes you get one or two people, and those two people are, they're crying and thanking you, and when you go back, they connect with you, and they follow you, and I follow them, and you create real friendships. So, and some of the most important concerts that I've given have been to two people, and some of the films where I made the biggest friendships are not necessarily the ones that most people have seen, but just these little things that I've done on my own or to the side. So it's hard to say, but for example, working the whole thing with Obama and the Democratic Party and OFA and all of that just grew very organically too. I was knocking on doors, which is what I suggest everybody does when election time comes. Right. Be a volunteer, go up there, don't leave it up to anybody else. We all have a role to play. And I was knocking on doors, and I was a filmmaker and a songwriter, and it just occurred to me, oh man, what do we do in rallies to get people hyped up? And Obama already had so much energy, but I wanted to get the Latino vote. People forget, a lot of us, thank God, are progressive, but there's a lot of conservative Latinos, especially in Florida and places like that, Texas, as well. And we're not a monolith. So I really wanted to speak out to Latinos and bring them into the fold and let them know why these policies are certainly better for us and just for the middle class and everybody, the working class. And so I started singing, and I just wrote the song, and I met up with Anabel Park and Eric Weiler, a couple of filmmakers, also an activist, and we connected on a rally. And Tom, my friend Tom Von Doom, who's a bass player and had a studio, said, oh, we could record the song here. And suddenly we just started filming what we were doing on the trail. And
Wow.
And this was not even part of the campaign yet. This was us along with everybody just collaborating with what we collaborated. But eventually, YouTube had a contest on their main page between the videos, and ours just beat everybody's. And that's how it sort of took off, and I guess the party, they noticed it, and that's how I ended up sort of making my way in, and so by cool things, I suppose you're talking about the great opportunities, the proud moments that I had singing, in the inaugural galas, a couple of Latino galas, in DC in the night of the inauguration. That was great, and great also because of the people that I got to talk to, and as well as, of course, having the chance and opportunity through activism and just volunteering of getting to talk in the White House, in the Obama White House, in the executive building, actually, about immigrant rights and trying to get immigration reform passed, and Dreamers and everything that we were fighting for.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I know it's all seriousness, but I know you had to have some sort of excitement being there, being able to express your thoughts. It had to be pretty dope being able there to kind of, what you're there for, but kind of feel kind of surreal, right? You feel kind of surreal.
Yeah. It's crazy. I remember. Well, the moment meeting Obama was great.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah,
I'm trying to hear that. I'm trying to get you to come out. I was like, that was like, a movie, right? You didn't believe it happened. You was asleep, woke up.
Did you have an out of body experience? I guess.
No, he's just a cool dude. He's a really cool, smart person. He's still a person, and I think this is, of course, I don't want to put words into the president's mouth, but I'm pretty sure from what I know about him that he rather be. I mean, we all idolized him, and I did my share of that too. But I think he wants us all to know, we're all people, and you can do extraordinary things too. Anybody can do extraordinary things, and it's not really one person. It's like he's always had his team, he's always had all the volunteers, and it's all of us creating that net. So it was a great moment. It was a fantastic moment, and partying that night was great. I remember just getting into the sea with, and being part of the inauguration with all the fireworks and everything that was going on, and the energy, people on the streets and hi-fi, and you really felt a part of it, because once you've been campaigning, you've been knocking on doors, you've been asking people to vote, explaining why, doing your part, making the calls. It's like, oh, that night was amazing. So that was definitely one of my happiest moments, just that moment in time. Yeah, that's one of them anyway.
That's what's up, man. That's what's up.
That's awesome. Because you had a lot of grind work in that. A lot of people, late nights, trips, and figuring things out, and meetings, and all the other stuff that goes into that. So, yeah, I'm sure at the end of it, everybody was just like, "Oh, it's a relief." Not a relief, but now it's like, okay, now the work really starts, sort of thing. But you have that sort of champion moment that you're a part of something bigger than yourself, and it was successful, sort of thing. So that's awesome.
Yeah. If I can say one thing, just because you were giving me this wonderful platform, one of the reasons I think someone like Obama, or someone who becomes really iconic, wants us to remember the movement as a whole, is because if you look at elections, and most of us are not even conscious of the importance of other electoral victories, like having the Senate and the House. And the Republicans were blocking so many things, almost everything they could from Obama. And if people just associate one figure, and they come out and vote for him, saying Obama or Biden or whoever, they forget, shoot, we really need to vote for everybody else, so that those, the legislative body actually legislates, puts the laws forward, so the president can sign them. So let's not forget them, so yeah, it's important to keep everybody in mind.
especially local,
local is huge. Awesome.
Change starts with everyone at a very personal level, then local level, and that's how you move forward.
Nice. Yeah. So as we're going down this discussion, this has been amazing. This has been awesome for you to be able to share your story with us. So let's talk about a little bit of the red carpet. I saw some pictures of you on the red carpet a little bit, and touring around, taking some nice, pretty shots out there. So as you're going on the entertainment side of your career. Is there anything that you're working on that you would like to discuss and talk about?
Yeah, it's a little tricky.
Well, I guess maybe so.
Well, I define, I'm mainly a writer-director, right? Mm-hmm. So I write these pieces, I direct these pieces that we're talking about, all the activism and all of that, and I score those, write and edit when I have to, and sometimes it's just out of need because we do this without a budget oftentimes,
Right.
and then I also I write my stuff and I help other people with other
Hmm.
projects
Right.
sometimes. And I guess I can say, for example, I teach an MFA in screenwriting.
Mm.
uh, so that's something that I do, and sometimes I coach outside of that, teach or script doctoring and all that stuff, and many other things related to acting and directing.
Mm.
But a lot of that is I guess, yeah, on my own,
Yeah.
unofficial.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you connect with people who through that, people who are willing to come on and help you out, like with that PSA where we had incredible people, and that short and those videos, where you end up working with some of your heroes, like Robin Williams or
Mm.
James Gandolfini, just to. And I wanted to talk about those two in particular because of something that you said about how important it is to remember that we don't know what people are going through. We
Hmm.
never know. You can be on top of the world, and somebody can be suffering from depression, anxiety. We're all human, and we have to remember that a kind word goes a long way. A kind and not to take everything at face value. And it's not to say, for example, Robin was an incredible person at all levels, and people know a lot about him, and there's a lot people don't know that he did as an activist, and keeping it on the down low. That is amazing, just an incredible human being. And meeting him, if you met him, you realize, yeah, he's exactly who you want. On one level, he's who you want him to be, super happy and making jokes and making everybody to the smallest person, or the less recognized person in the set, for example, whatever job they're doing, in the hierarchy of Hollywood or whatever, taking the time to making that person feel great. He was always like that. At the same time, I got the sense this is a really deep person. Like, I could see where he got, the chops and the inner life to do things like Awakenings, because and all those dramas, because he had that side of him. And we all have many sides, so it's great to remember, to look deeper and to try to make real connections, and never judge anyone too harshly.
Nice, nice. Yeah, yeah. You just never know what people are going through. We talk about
Mm-hmm.
this at work. This it's like this balance and showing compassion
Mm-hmm.
and trying to make sure that you walk, I would say, a fine line, but you just show empathy towards people and
Mm-hmm.
really, really, really dive into that, to understand and what they're going through. Don't be too harsh. Just be a listening ear for things. Try to help. So yeah, yeah, that's awesome that you're able to talk and
Mm-hmm.
speak to that.
Mm-hmm.
That's really speaking truth to power, and that's what interconnects us and brings us all together. So that's great.
Yeah, and oh, sorry. I was
I
just
was
going to
just
address.
I was just going to say comment on what you just said. I think it's also important that you also spoke on, Robin, because a lot of people are fans but did not get to see, all of the facets, right? So I think that's highly important. I think all of us here are fans, but of course our audience as well, um, may not got to experience everything, right? We just only seen everything on screen and maybe
Mhm,
what's heard, but I think it's a great thing that you were able to kind of reflect and show us, kind of behind the scenes of the
mhm,
type of person he who he was,
mhm,
and embodied. Because to me he was one of the greats, right?
mhm. Yeah,
And
yeah, absolutely. Genius, genius.
yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's definitely a genius. One thing I did want to talk to you about is, and that I find very interesting, is that when I went onto your IMDb page, I
Mhm,
saw that you did the PSA for the Cove,
mhm,
and that's something that my daughter and I relate a lot to because she loves animals,
mhm,
and we had an unfortunate event that we witnessed at one of the theme parks, and we publicized it. And for a time it got a lot of recognition, and the people that filmed the Cove sent us, the DVD, and we got contacted from the director of Blackfish and CNN. But
Hmm.
I wanted to talk to you about how, you kind of got involved in that PSA. And,
Hmm.
I also think it's great too, because I saw that there were so many stars that came out to help you with that project because
Hmm.
they were passionate as well.
Hmm.
So I just wanted to ask you how you got involved and how people reached out to you when you started doing that PSA.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay, so if I remember correctly, first I met a couple of friends in ISCO who became one of the producers, and Ulrika, and just a few other people involved. Later, Fisher Stevens, and they were working on this. They knew how I felt about this cause, and we were already looking for things to collaborate on because they had seen what I had done
Mhm.
previously up to that point. And I said, they approached me about it, and I said, I'm there. It's incredibly important to me. I thought it was horrible, the way these animals were being treated, just cruel. And these are very empathetic animals, and these are highly intelligent mammals who, of course, feel pain and, of course, have complex mental processes. And I knew what was being done to them, and how painful that was. And fortunately, a lot of folks, like I said, I realized there's a ton of people in this industry who are very compassionate, very compassionate. A lot of them do great work, some that is known, some that is not known, for many different causes. So it was easy for us at that point to just call a lot of people, and there was a lot of people who who were trying to make it, and we couldn't work it in because we were filming somebody else at the same time.
Mhm.
And there were people who were left in the cutting room floor, like a ton of them, of extremely talented people, just because of how many people showed up. And we had future Avengers in there, and we had Jen Aniston and Ben Stiller and Woody Harrelson, who I always loved, anyway, and just beautiful heart, and his family. They're just amazing people.
Mhm.
So we know we could count on them, and then they brought their A game, and we had a lot of laughter, and shared great time, great stories. There's some secret behind the scenes video that we made that is just great fun that we had, and it was just a great project, and it accomplished its goal. We were looking for 1 million signatures, which we got, and we worked with Take Part to try to mobilize action in Japan, and to get attention here about this cause, which of course Blackfish did a great job pushing that forward, and that we have to keep fighting for around the world, just
Right.
for sentient beings. We are all sentient beings. We all feel pain, and we all suffer, and I just don't understand how somebody can dedicate or spend their lives hurting others when you could help others.
Right.
It's probably easier and make you feel better.
Mhm.
So why not?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Especially defenseless animals, right?
Um,
Yeah.
and I think that your work. I accidentally became an activist at that time. It wasn't it wasn't something that I tried to do. It was just an accident. But I happened to be at the theme park at the time when something occurred. But what I think is amazing is that with the Cove and your PSA and Blackfish coming out, I think there was so much pressure, especially in America, for them to start releasing some of the
mm,
dolphins in captivity and starting treating the orcas better. Because I mean, there was times where I'm sure that you've heard stories where the orcas were mistreated and that they took it out on the trainers. There.
mm,
I mean, those tanks are just so small for
mm,
such big, smart
mm,
creatures to be in,
mm.
and then to force them to do tricks, it just
It's
broke my heart. So
torture. It's torture,
yeah.
really.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thank you for what you did. Thank you.
Oh,
Right.
thank you. No, thank you, and thank you for what you did.
Mhm.
That's great.
It's awesome.
Um, what other environmental stuff have you been involved in?
Okay, so several around that time, I got the chance through Take Part and Fonda Verosini, who worked at Take Part at the time. Great person. She connected us to Sylvia Earle, who's a brilliant oceanographer, one of the foremost oceanographers in the world, and we worked with them on something called Oceans, Sylvia Earle's Journey. And so got to follow her around and learn from her and the beauty of the oceans. And she's just an amazing reservoir of knowledge and wisdom, and just really inspired me to keep going. And it was just a wonderful, beautiful, beautiful experience. So that was another thing where I got to direct. And as a director also, I did Lo que vamos a dejar, which translates to what we leave behind. And this was a collaboration between, I sort of worked with my alma mater in Colombia, La Universidad de Caldas, who were doing something regarding the environment, and I thought was very exciting, and I always kept that connection, and I wanted to help out the then dean, who's a good friend of mine, who became the head of the school, and then and connected that with a group of activists here, such as Mama, who do amazing work, is very Latino-oriented. And not everybody knows that the Latinos are actually very green-minded, because we have a very strong connection to Mother Earth, to La Madre Tierra, deep connection. So I sort of we filmed all over the place. So there's footage from the States, there's footage from Colombia, and we wanted to show that unity. And it's all about trying to think not even about us, but what are we leaving our children and our grandchildren, and how our choices right now are impacting the future, when we don't think about our waste and our pollution. So it was a great project to be involved in. I wrote a song for it as well. And speaking of Italy, I went to Bologna to take part in this United Nations World Bank event regarding the goals and the environmental process that we were pushing. So that was great, and did some work around there in that time. So yeah, it was a great experience, and I'm very grateful that I got to do that.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Do you feel like at some point you may want to step into more like a role that maybe I can't say political, but something more where you have more of a say so on specific kind of change in policies or whatnot? Or do you think that your work is much larger than that?
No, I would never say much larger than that. Most people think I'm already stretched way too thin as I am. It's like in Colombia. In Colombia, we have this saying, and I heard it all my life because I've always been a scatterbrain. So everybody's like, "El que mucho abarca, poco aprieta," right? And that means he who tries to hold too much, can't hold it all. Yeah. And that's why I'm not really a good singer, not really a good guitar player, not really good. I'm not really good at anything. I'm just a creative person who will not take no for an answer and will get it done somehow. And we pray that people help out.
You should see me on karaoke night. You think that's real bad right there. So I think you're good.
No, and it's really, and it's been great and very helpful to be a professor. It's another source of pride for me to be able to learn so much from these folks. Some of them are, of course, it's a master's, so a lot of them are teachers themselves. University professors themselves, but it's something that I keep coming back to, is that the learning process is never over, and you're never going to achieve perfection, and sometimes you just got to do it. There's no way around it. You set yourself a deadline, and you make it, and you meet it, and when something doesn't work, and sometimes when you don't know how to do something, it's even better because you come up with something new, and it's just trying to keep that spirit up is the key. And it's something that, to go back to something you mentioned, and somebody that I had the honor to watch work was James Gandolfini, who I mentioned before. And this is tremendously talented, as everybody knows. And even in our little things, in our little projects and things, to see how hard he worked every single second, and how hard he was on himself, like completely too much. But it's that thing. It's really hard work. So So I don't know about politics because I know so many smarter people than me that I want to help. I try to help the folks that are doing the work.
But you were part of a bigger team, right? So you have a
Yeah,
team that kind of
it's true.
that up for you,
It's true. It's true.
right? It
So
could be
so no
somebody else
mayor.
singing for you instead. You know what I mean? You never know. Somebody come in and sing for you and promote you instead. I'm just
Well,
saying
So no
it can
mayor of LA in your
thank you,
future.
man. You have a lot of faith in me. I appreciate
happen.
that.
I was gonna say, so no mayor of LA in your future then right
No,
now.
no. No, but I'll be happy to help however I
Yeah,
can.
all
I
right.
mean, I think the most I've done is become a state, co-lead organizer for some stuff, and
Yeah.
that's all. I like the idea of the team. I like to be in the team, and just like in some of the best things that I've been involved in, I've been completely behind the scenes, like completely invisible, and I like that. That's also good. It's good. It's
Yeah.
good to feel part of the flow and then see something come out and just that be surprised by it is amazing.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly how I am. Team effort. I don't care about the glitz and the fame. I'm not looking for that. I just want everybody to be happy that we're achieving whatever goal. We have a term on our on this little squad here. Is we have North Stars and milestones, right, on what
Yeah.
we're trying to do. And I was like, Carlo, we got to have a North Star. This is the North Star. You're gonna get it. You're gonna get it. We just got to keep on grinding, and we'll get that North Star. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
Do you see a lot of children also kind of following? I mean, it doesn't have to say stuff that you're doing, but just things you have may seen over time because it seems you've been all over the place and just kind of getting want to kind of like a glass view of what you see and how are kids affected. I mean, I know like this year we had the youngest poet at the inauguration this year, and
Yeah.
and and, and I kind of and I just want to know, do you see anything like that affecting or influencing young uh,
People.
people with the same kind of mindset, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. What can I say? Well, just I'll just speak as a fan, all right? So I told you I love those folks over at Marvel, and it's completely, absolutely true. And I'm someone who, I started reading comic books as a kid. I started drawing comic books in third grade. I was having trouble with my math teacher because she always found me drawing comic books, and I had my, Spider-Man and all my Marvel comics. So one of the great meetings of my life was with Stan Lee before he passed away, and he was incredible in my mind. He was everything you could want and more. And if you pay attention to what he did throughout his career, he was very much pushing for racial equality all across the board. If you read some of his soapboxes, he was just a beautiful, beautiful person. And I'm so happy that that spirit is still with us today with Marvel, and Victoria Alonso. She's all about equality, women's rights, and they're all just human beings who know what the world looks like. Let's not kid ourselves. And we're so happy that Black Panther did such success, because it inspired so many kids to see themselves reflected. It's so powerful, and we've seen so many kids come up to these great creators to talk about how that moved them. And that's the power of inclusion, right? It's to see the world because the flip side of that is what we've had for a long time. It's exclusion. We have the world, the beautifully diverse world that we have, and we're being kept out of the spheres of power, or out of the spotlight, because a certain power structure that comes from great injustices wants to keep going. And so the way to undo that is to look up to people who are really leading the way in equality. And entertainment is so powerful. Culture is very powerful, I feel. And that's why I'm very, very proud just to be, to work in the arts in some way, because I feel that even if I reach just one person, you can give a speech, right? And I appreciate, I am somebody who loves philosophy, and I read a lot, and I love reading speeches, of course, Obama's speeches, but many other speeches, and I feel that they move me, and great speakers can do that. But there's some people you cannot reach that way, and sometimes I try to speak
Right.
to those people through filmmaking and through some. When you put music and images together, you're opening your mind and your heart, not just your mind but your heart. It's an emotional experience, and you can really put yourself in somebody else's shoes in a different way. It's like you get people with their guards down. Instead of telling them do this or do that, just, this is what happened to so and so, and in The Flame You Keep, for example, I tell the story about Yusra Mardini, who escaped from Syria, and she actually swam and pulled people on a boat when they were going to Greece, because she was a swimmer. Eventually became an Olympic swimmer and a goodwill ambassador for the UN. And to me, that's the potential sometimes that we're turning away, right? That we're turning back, and we don't want those people. And there's so much racism and bigotry, and we're only hurting ourselves. So with the arts, you can sometimes cut through that. And some of these artists that we've talked about, it can be somebody really funny doing something very light, but if the heart is in the right place, and the whole piece is saying something positive, that can change somebody's outlook on life, especially a child that's growing up.
Yeah, and you sound like Bruce Lee, to be honest with you. And if you didn't know, he was also discriminated against
Yeah.
from his own people,
Mm.
right? Because one of his first students was African American, and they didn't like that because he was teaching non-Chinese. Now, and he had a lot of issues going through the film industry, right?
Yeah.
Because he was American Asian, and they didn't accept him.
Yeah.
And then, and speaking about Black Panther, I think that's interesting because that whole story is a reflection of everything you just said, right? Because you have a villain, a Killmonger is more like a sympathetic villain, right? He's kind of like a hero in a way, right? Because all he wants is justice for his people. He wants to empower his people by the technology that comes from Wakanda, and it opened the eyes to T'Challa of seeing the world in a different way because he was let's be honest, he's kind of sheltered, right?
Yeah.
At least in the movie, and he didn't see the other side. So it's kind of like you're kind of rooting for Killmonger as you're going through the movie, and you kind of feel for him because he's right in a certain way. He's
Yes.
just going about it a certain way. You may not agree with his methods, but you adjust your emotions to understand how he feels. And I think that's what made that so powerful, right? Because it's what we all deal with.
Yeah, it's an incredible work. It's an incredible work, and it shows. We teach about thesis, antithesis, and synthesis, and it's something that I teach a lot about, which means you put an idea forward, you find the contrast, and then the audience makes up their mind. They come up with the synthesis of what you're seeing, and in that case, they're both learning from each other. And if you don't want to think you want to think in terms of opponent. Not always a villain, though he's a villain if he becomes an extremist and uses violence to, and doesn't care about human life, then yes. But the more depth you give them, because everybody's human, even people who've done the most horrible things believe they're right, and some of those ideas may have merit. That does not excuse their misdeeds, right? So in Black Panther, I think it was beautifully done because T'Challa himself and Black Panther learns so much from Killmonger, in those ending scenes. But at the same time, what they're proposing is inclusion and exclusion. And so in a sense, you learn, Killmonger may have make a lot of sense, and he's fighting because of real injustices. And this leads us back to what happened with slavery and what's the history of the United States. But what do we want to go forward? What's the example that we want to set forward? Revenge? Do we want to segregate? Do we want to go from one superiority to another superiority, or do we really want equality? And that's a real hard sacrifice, and it's a hard sacrifice to ask of the people who've been oppressed. So the people who've been the oppressors have to do a lot of the changing, and we have to push for them to do that. But it is it's not just solely entertainment for kids. We these are heavy ideas that we can all learn from, definitely. And I hope people, and it seems like so many people were paying attention, so I'm so very happy for that.
Yeah.
And about that.
Especially the last line that he said, right? Killmonger, I'm talking
Yeah.
about. That is a historic moment, right? That has so much depth to it. And I know it's just a simple couple sentences, but when you think about it, it's a mindset more than just physical,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And I think that is a representation of what the entire story was about,
Yeah.
right? On both sides, not
Right.
just
Right.
his side, but also in Wakanda, right? Because they're also living or in a mindset where they trapped in their own minds thinking, you know, to exclude themselves from the rest of the world when it's because of that why things happen the way they do, right? Because
Mhm.
we don't want to follow that mindset. We want to push the agenda to create balance.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Balance.
Um,
One thing I want to say is, Paris, I thought you had a question. Did you have something you want to say?
Um, other than as we're telling all these wonderful stories, Andres, this has been amazing to sit here and listen to you share a lot of the activism work that you've done, continued support of people in the community, people of color, people immigrants that are coming into the country, and helping them out, getting people involved and just really sharing that that passion for all the things that you do. This is for sure my one of my favorite interviews now. It's just like this is awesome to, I mean, just to listen to someone like you and have you here sharing it. You really don't have to, right? I mean, and that's the cool thing is that you being able to just do that and effortlessly. And I'm just so happy that we're able to talk and get to meet you and know you, and listen to all these wonderful stories. Yeah, this has been great. I think we're almost running out of time here, so I just wanted to ask you. I'll ask a question, and Carlo, I think you could just close it out if you don't mind. Whatever questions that you have. So Andreas, like, um, so what's next for you? What's next on the roadmap for you? Are you planning on doing any more? Are there any more activist things you got on the timetable, or are you just sort of hunkering down and working on the entertainment side? So what's next?
A little bit of everything.
Mhm.
I love teaching. I hope to continue teaching. I hope to continue coaching and helping people with their scripts and directing and teaching people. I've also done workshops teaching folks. Writing my big stories, sci-fi a lot, fantasy. I've been doing superheroes forever, one way or the other, since I was a kid and
Okay.
to this day. And I love thrillers, and I love the mechanics of good uh, plot development and character and giving depth to character. Uh, so all of that, and of course activism, and there's a lot going on in the world. Hopefully we'll try to keep helping refugees however we can with the different organizations and maybe some artistic
Mhm.
processes and music, and you know how you connect from one thing leads to the next. So from the last work, I'm already connecting with a lot of people for future filmmaking and musical enterprises. So hopefully
Awesome.
we get to see some of
I
that. Yeah.
hope you get to eat and sleep somewhere in between.
I had a wonderful meal right before this.
Um, one question I do have for you is that do you find it different being an activist in America versus another country? Do you find it harder in other countries to be an activist?
Yes, certainly. I admire um, a lot of the people. For example, the folks working as activists in Russia. Man, my hats off to them.
Right.
Some regimes are so oppressive, so openly oppressive, and so violently and outright violent that it's really hard to be the resistance. And in Colombia, it's very hard. And for social leaders, there's a lot of people from different tribes who've been targeted, people who are seeking change in the countryside against corruption who've been killed. So it's and it's a country that suffered through big periods of violence, and sadly, for example, Mexico has gone through that, obviously, and for where it's hard to be even a reporter, a journalist. So, and in here, we got very close to that. I mean, if you look at what happened at the Capitol, we can't sleep on that. We can't let the forces of division and bigotry and violence to continue, and just try to create change in the peaceful ways and means that we have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is, one of the most important things about humanity is that instead of being divided, we all come together because our, you know, it's all about civil rights and human rights in general for humanity. And when
Mm,
one person or one race is oppressed, then humanity is being oppressed.
exactly.
And we need to break that line of bigotry and hatred and all come together and be
Mhm.
peaceful. So I appreciate what you do, and I want to thank you for your time coming on the show. A lot of these stories, are very heartfelt for me. Real quick, I just want to let my dad came at a time to America when there was a lot of discrimination against Italians, and
Mhm.
where he ended up in Brooklyn, um, a lot of the Italians that couldn't speak English were beaten up,
Mhm.
by police forces at the time. So it was very hard for them to function in society or learn English. And one of the things that my dad always taught me, and it's similar to maybe kind of how your father was an activist to you, and it reminds me of that. My father always felt like that he had to give back because he knew how hard it was for him to be successful. So every year at Thanksgiving he would go back to his town, his neighborhood in Brooklyn, is the best way to say it. And
Yeah.
there's this homeless guy that was always under the bridge, and my dad knew him from a long time ago. And my dad would go back every year on Thanksgiving or before Thanksgiving and take him out for a meal, offer him a hotel stay wherever he
Mhm.
wanted to stay, offer to help him get a shower, new clothes, whatever it was that he could do. And my dad always felt like he had to give back. No matter somebody came to him in need, he felt like that they were part of the human race and that we're all together and
Right.
we need to help each other.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I think your stories are going to resonate with all of us in our audience, and I can't thank you enough for spending the time and coming on the show. So thank you very, very much, Andreas.
Thank you so much. That's very touching. Thank you so much for sharing. I was thinking you made me realize one of the reasons I love New York, and actually the idea of the United States, the word United States, is embodied by the Statue of Liberty, and that symbol you know, has been so key to my life, really. And it appears in Marching into the Light. It appears in Dream to Belong. It appears in everything I've done, down to the flame you keep. The flame you keep I'm talking about is that flame in the torch, which to me means hope. And it seems to me this country exists because it was either immigrants or the people enslaved that came, and because and the natives were oppressed too. So it's sort of a history of oppression, but out of that came a beautiful diversity, right? And where it is our obligation, I feel, to keep that flame burning for people and for the world, and reminds us, because too many of us forget that we really one, and that we're all better off helping each other, and getting rid of that hate
Yeah.
that we've suffered through our lives.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Fantastic. Oh my gosh. We could go on and talk about this stuff because this is
Yeah.
awesome. I love it. Um, so, where can we find you on the socials before we close out, Andres?
All right, so www.facebook.com/Andres and the number one. That's me on Facebook. It's my personal Facebook. There's Andres.Useche. That's Useche, Useche. .G. That's me on Instagram. Andres Useche, just my name altogether on Twitter. Andres Useche.
All right.
And that's it. And just hit me up, throw me a line. Just it's a thread. It's a thread. It's like this interview will no doubt. I already love meeting you guys and talking to you guys, and I hope we can keep talking on some level. And that's how relationships are built. And maybe somebody will hear that who will connect and think, oh, maybe I can do something. And there's a lot of potential. Maybe I know how to draw. Maybe I can go knock some doors. There's something that I can do to make a difference somewhere. Or just one person that you can talk and give a kind word to that will make a big difference.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I can tell you this: if there's any projects that you're working on with activism, feel free to let me know, and I'll spread it across my platforms as well to reach even more people.
Thank you.
So thank you very much, and
Yeah, we do know graphic artists and stuff like that. So yeah.
Awesome.
If you ever need
Yeah.
help with that, we know a lot of people like that too. So
I'll hold you to it.
it is tough.
Awesome, man. It's always great meeting good people.
Awesome.
So to everybody watching this later on, I want to thank you very much for tuning in. And follow Andreas at the places that he mentioned. And if you want to get involved in activism, watch his feeds. I believe Take Part is another organization that you can get involved with. So all you have to do is ask and put yourself out there if you want to be involved in activism, and you can always do good. Kindness is free, and pass it on. And thank you for listening and watching.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Great to meet you.